Good morning. Welcome to Viewpoint, your program of personalities, politicians, and perspectives. And boy, we got a guest for you. Get your club ready. And we've got him inside. He's trapped. He can't go anywhere. Mrs. Busby's going to introduce him very shortly. After the old man has a kudo or two, big kudo, seriously. You might have remembered that we had a Memorial Day weekend. And the veterans, the folks out the American Legion Post 263, and the other veterans joined them, put on a very, very nice program. Ron Otto, First Christian Church, did a very nice job. Although Ron kind of belabored himself a little bit for not having served due to age, and I can relate to that, but I need to have a father and son talk with Pastor Otto. He should not feel bad about not having served. My father was under similar circumstances, and he always felt like he didn't serve his country. It was a matter of age at World War I, Chris. Mm-hmm. And so I have to talk with Ron. He should not feel bad that he did. It's a matter of circumstances, but he did a nice job. And then yesterday, the veterans had a flag burning ceremony. Maybe people out there, one or two of you listeners out there, might not know flag protocol when you have a flag that's tattered and torn. You just don't throw them away, folks. Take them out to the Legion, and periodically, at least once a year, they'll have a flag burning ceremony where they retire the color. Well, flag is not the colors. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I knew you weren't supposed to put them in the trash.
No, I didn't know if you knew why they call the colors the colors.
Oh, no, that's
a special flag.
That was another thing I didn't know. Yeah.
Well, you've got to catch up. I don't know. You're going to sit around all day with Murphy.
Do you think I will, or is it a little late?
Sit around all day and yell at Murphy, tell him to come back home. But seriously, that was a very nice weekend. And I hope that you two out there remembered exactly what Memorial Day was about. So go right ahead, Mrs. Busby, and introduce our guest this morning, because he's an important guy. He's not very popular around here, but he's an important guy.
Well, in fact, he's so important, he's got himself a whale of a title. He's called the Warning Coordinator Meteorologist.
So why don't you coordinate something for me?
Yeah. I'm working on it.
Chris Miller has been our guest any number of times, but this is the most timely time he's come, I think. And how long ago did we make this date? It was quite a while back.
A couple months ago, at least.
Who'd have thought?
Oh, I know.
I mean, you must be busier than a cranberry merchant trying to...
Well, one could say that. Yes, it's been a busy time for the last several months.
Have the farmers put a price on your head yet?
Well, yeah, there's that to be said.
Yeah, not yet. Like I said before, this falls under the "don't kill the messenger" category. Yeah, I've got some friends that are farmers, and I've talked to them several times, obviously, already about when's this rain gonna quit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've got some interesting information about that. But
well, let's just get down to specifics.
Sure. All right.
Yeah, well, when is it going to quit?
Well, I'll tell you what. I got a question for you. When do you think was the last time we went a week, or not even a week, 6 days in Lincoln where we didn't get any rain at all?
Oh, my, it's got to be a while.
Yeah.
It has got to be, because, the farmers, they're talking about the percentage of their planting that they've got done. Are we losing anything besides our minds here?
Yeah, it's been since the middle of October.
No kidding.
Yes.
Middle of October.
Middle of October. October 16th to the 22nd. Was the last time we went a full 6-7 day period with no rain at all. Now, we had a little stretch in the middle of May when I saw the fields were very busy from about, I think it was May 16th or so, but when we had a couple days in there where we just got a light rain, some sprinkles, didn't amount to much. But if you just say, when's the last time we just didn't have any rain for a stretch of 6 or 7 days? You got to go back to October.
Gee, that's a long way. I wouldn't have
no,
realized it was that far back.
Yeah.
I must call my brother right away and tell him how smart I am.
There you are. There you are.
If it wasn't the rain that was catching us in late October, especially November, then we had snow. Back to rain in December with storms. Then winter really hit, late January.
Yes.
You know, our 40 below wind chills and
Yes,
all
we
that
really
stuff.
celebrated that
Yes.
season.
Yeah, that was. Then it was snow. Every 3 or 4 days we were getting snow or ice in January, February, and then we immediately went to, I don't even want to call it spring. I don't know what it was. I'm not sure what this is. What do we call it? I think we didn't have spring this year.
We did not have spring, and this
No.
was a pretty short winter summer, by the way.
Yeah. It just it just started pounding rain once we got into March, April, May.
Well, and I think we're all tired of it, and we all complain. You know, that's cheap, and still we're lucky because I mean I've got a whole boulevard full of big limbs at my house, and that's too bad, but. Maybe someday the dump will open up, and maybe someday they'll pick them up.
Yeah.
This is my prayer. But the thing is, at least we, right here in River City, aren't having the awfulness that some are with tornadoes and tornadoes and tornadoes.
Right. Tornadoes, and it all started with flooding. You know, you go back to
Yes.
the first part of March, Mississippi River started flooding, and that was there was a bunch of snow
Yes.
in your old homeland, my old homeland, Minnesota,
Yes.
Wisconsin, northern Illinois. A lot of snow. That snow just rapidly melted. It was a worst case scenario. And the Mississippi, Illinois, and a bunch of the rivers started filling up with this water from the melted snow, and then got rain on top of it. I think I heard where the Mississippi River in the Quad Cities area, Davenport, Moline area, they set a record not only for the highest river stage they've ever had, but also the longest number of days they've been above a certain level we call major flood stage. It's gone on for over 2 months, and they've never been at that stage for that long. And the Mississippi River again is going to be going through another round of flooding next week. We're hearing that down at St. Louis on the Mississippi, they could have their second highest level ever
In the world. Oh my
in
goodness.
St. Louis. Yeah,
Yeah.
I saw
for
a
their
sad
records.
picture the
Yeah.
other day
Yeah.
on TV. It showed this river lapping at this only little house along a riverbank.
Yeah.
And it looked like about a 15-foot between the house and the river.
Mm-hmm.
And the river was rising, and it was inevitable that house was going to go in the river. It's
Yes.
just inevitable.
Yeah. The properties are being lost. There is, I mean, you look at the flooding that rapidly occurred in Davenport, Iowa, when that barrier they had to keep the river kind of at bay
Yeah.
gave way and flooded in less than 30 seconds. It flooded a large portion of the downtown.
Oofta.
So we're fortunate in the sense that, you know, we don't have that. We do have creeks around here that get
Yes.
bad enough. And, you know, when the Kickapoo Creek went over, I don't know that, I've lived here over 20 years. I haven't seen it that
Which
bad.
reminds me of a gripe. Am I allowed to gripe?
Gripe quick.
Okay. I have a hard time sleeping. I have an impossible time sleeping when your weather station goes off every 10-15. And I'm not interested in whether Sugar Creek is going to inundate Burtonview or not. I just want to know if there's going to be a tornado.
Right.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
They're very good. They're very diligent about warning you on our weather station. Mm-hmm. And it's your fault if you don't know what's going on, because a little weather radio is a very small investment, and it may cost you a little sleep, but it's also going to give you a lot of satisfaction knowing that you're not going to get blown away.
Yeah, thank God for technology. I'm sure that saved more lives than we can imagine.
That has, Weather Radio has, and, you know, documented proof of that through the years. Also, the thing that a lot of us run around with in our pocket. It's a blessing and it's a curse, but these cell phones,
Yes.
some people spend way too much time on them and whatnot, but I'll tell you, if you've got one of the smartphones, not the ones that are the flip phones or the old Blackberries, but the what they call smartphones, those automatically get tornado warnings and flash flood warnings. You don't have to sign up for anything. Doesn't cost you anything. It just comes with the phone.
Yeah.
The phone manufacturers worked with all the cell companies and FEMA and the National Weather Service and the FCC. So everybody, we all got together, and this was a presidential mandate that came out actually after 9/11.
Yeah, the other night, I was aware of the fact that my cell phone, which was 5 feet from my bed, was going off and lighting up.
Yeah.
And I said, well, something's going seriously out here. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, as soon as we issued the tornado warning for Logan County, and in fact, it was kind of interesting because at the weather office here on the east side of town, we had, oh gosh, I don't know, 7 or 8 of us were working there through the night till about 5 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, yeah,
It was a long night, but we got a large area
Yeah.
in central Illinois that we cover. And anyway, we put out that warning for Lincoln. We saw it was coming toward Lincoln, so we got on the phone with the weather office in Chicago and said, be ready to back us up because we might have to go to shelter. The storm might be coming toward us.
Oh,
dear.
yeah.
But the funny thing is that all of our cell phones went off at the same time.
Is that right?
Yeah, the
Each
guy
of
who
you
was doing
had
the
a
warnings, he pressed the button and said issue warning, and it was less than 2 seconons. Everybody's cell phones
There
went
it
off at
went.
the same time. So
648-5510. Mr. Miller is... Guys, we always love to have him up here because he's a cornucopia of knowledge, at least about weather. I don't know about anything else.
maybe some sports, but yeah, that's
Birds and bees, anyway. But anyway, seriously, we're always happy to have you. And Judy and I recognize you take some part out of your day to be with us, so we appreciate that. And we have questions. Somebody has notified Mr. Ash, knowing apparently that you were going to be here this morning, because he does put it on the air, who we're going to have on Viewpoint.
Sure.
So this person says, is there a website to get accurate rainfall measurements for Lincoln? And where would this person go, if at all?
Yes, that is out there. We take at our weather office, we're right across the road from the Christian University here in town. We take what's considered the official rainfall measurement for Lincoln, and that we have that on our webpage. Our webpage is
Little patriotism there.
somebody likes our webpage, I guess.
I'll have to. And that's my brother of all people. For God's sake. He knows I'm on the air on Wednesday morning.
That's good. He's giving you a hard time.
Right, yeah.
Our webpage, basically, spell out the word weather. Weather, WEATHER, weather.gov. So we're part of the federal government, so it's weather.gov/Lincoln. And that'll go directly to our webpage. And on our main page, there's a menu, and on the menu it says climate. And all the climate information is listed right there under local climate. We've got a number of sites that we have local climate for. We do it for Lincoln, Peoria, Springfield, Decatur. Clicking on that will get you the observation that we take every day. If somebody needs more than that, because we do have other weather observers around the city of Lincoln. There's a program called, it's kind of a funny name, it's called COCORAS. And
that's a funny name.
It stands for Community Collaborative Rainfall, Hail, and Snow Observings. It's one of those acronyms.
Yeah.
COCORAS is a bunch of volunteer weather observers. They all use the same rain gauges, the same type of rain gauge. So we're all kind of, starting from the same point. And they report, we have a lot of dedicated folks that report daily with that. And there are several within the city of Lincoln. If somebody wants that weather information, I would say just go to our webpage at weather.gov/Lincoln. And down at the very bottom, you can send a question to our webmaster.
Oh, really?
And then the webmaster will send them, because that email or that web address is kind of long for me to give on the radio. But but it'd be something that we could send to somebody through an email easily.
So the website would be
weather.gov/Lincoln.
.gov/Lincoln.
Yep.
I hope that answers your question, caller.
Yeah.
Or writer, as the case may be.
Yeah.
I have one that I'm not sure I can even understand. When percentage rain is in the forecast, when the percentage of rain is in the forecast, does that percentage reflect the percentage of the area expected to get rain, or just the possibility of getting rain? What did I just ask?
I don't have the Vegas, but I'm sure Chris does.
And my favorite answer to that question is yes. Because actually it's both. We in the forecast, when you hear 40% chance of rain, 50% chance, it really is that, what is the likelihood that rain is or is not going to occur? So 30% is, 3 out of every 10 times, yes, it would rain. The other 7, no. But you can also say it's kind of an aerial thing, and we relate, say, a 30 or 40% chance is scattered. Some people are going to get it, most people are not. Once you start seeing that 60, 70, 80% chance, then a majority of the area is going to get wet, and you can plan on getting wet.
Yeah.
So.
The other day they couldn't, at the very exact moment, decide whether there'd been a tornado in Lincoln or the winds.
Right.
Now, how did they come to the conclusion that it was whatever it was?
Right. We go out and we're trained to look at trees, buildings, whatever structures, could be power poles, could be whatever, and whatever's damaged. We go out and we look at the damage, and by carefully assessing what we see before us, how the tree was damaged. For example, we see a lot of information in trees. The tops of trees, if a couple of limbs are coming out of trees, it was probably what we would call, a straight line wind gust or something like that. If a large portion of especially toward the top of the tree, is broken off, just literally violently snapped. Now, I'm not talking about the whole tree. I'm just talking about the very top of the tree, the top branches. And you can see, white areas where those branches used to come out, and very large ones. And then they were thrown quite a ways. That most likely is tornado. When a whole tree gets uprooted or a very large branch on a tree comes down, typically a tornado doesn't do that. Tornadoes tend to tear up the tops of trees, just when we're talking about trees. Now, when it comes to buildings, we have to look at how was the building constructed, what exactly was damaged, but also we don't just look at one area. Like in the last few days, we've gotten pictures from people, and we appreciate all the information. And somebody the other day up in the Bloomington Normal area sent me a picture, and they said, well, we had some tree limbs down, look at our tree, and it was a mess. It was a Bradford pear tree, which 40, 50 mile an hour wind will break apart a Bradford pear tree, because those are just very
sturdy.
weak. No, they're very weak trees, and they get kind of top heavy. So we kind of know what kind of tree it is too. So plus we look to see what we were showing on radar. Was there any circulation? What part of the storm was it? And then we put the whole picture together. Like for example, right within the city of Lincoln, we had tree branches and damage down across much of the city. A lot of branches down, lots of power lines, mainly from trees falling onto them, and that branches and stuff. Tornadoes typically produce a more concentrated area damage in a smaller area, maybe a block, 2 blocks, 3 blocks wide, not so much across the whole city. Now, if we had a tornado that wide, we would definitely know about it. And, similar, I think they had one like this in Lawrence, Kansas last night. It was about a mile-wide tornado that came through that town.
That's a huge one.
Yeah, and you would know it because the wind speed, there are houses that are completely destroyed. So when we looked at the whole picture, the big picture, to us, it looked like within the city limits of Lincoln, there was very high wind, 70, 80 miles per hour, possibly a little higher in spots.
Judy gets those all the time at her house.
Oh, yeah.
She has more limbs down than they have trees.
But just northwest of town, out in the country, there were 3 farms that were hit by a tornado. It looks like it developed about a mile west of Kickapoo Park, and it crossed Interstate 55, and then went up into areas north of I-55, right, almost parallel with old 121, going out of town. And once they hit the curve, I think they call that the Bell Curve over there.
Bell
Station. Yeah. Right over there is where that
young
tornado
friend Clark
was.
Oltman's.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Got that damage, yes.
Yeah.
You know, Judith Kay, we have had the privilege of having Mr. Miller with us several times. And I sit here in slack-jawed amazement at the cornucopia of knowledge that he carries between the right and the left cell upstairs. In order to avoid taking another chemistry course, I took a semester of meteorology in college, and the only thing I can remember is the Beaufort scale. Other than that, I can't remember anything about meteorology,
You're ahead of
except that
me.
it is a lot more involved than I realized.
Well, and we're going to have to start introducing Chris as botanist / meteorologist.
Oh, I know just enough of that to be dangerous. I'll tell you.
Well, he wears many hats, and we do, and our listeners appreciate your sharing your knowledge with us, Chris. I'm going to ask you again, at the risk of repetition, when you started in this profession.
I actually had an interest in this when I was about 8 years old.
Is that right?
And most of my coworkers, not all of them, but most of them, it was about the same age.
Is that right?
It starts at a young age. But then...
Were you afraid, Chris, of the storms?
I actually was. That's what got me going. That's what got me interested, is I was so afraid of
That's very
storms.
interesting.
And so my parents helped me with that, especially my mom helped me, took me to the library and got books about tornadoes and storms.
Smart mother, yeah.
And I just...
You had a good mom.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, God
Yeah,
bless
you
her. My
bet.
mom is, she's always been supportive, both my parents, very supportive of what I wanted to do. They knew it would take me away from home, which for me, home is up in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee. I went to college back in the mid-'80s, and then started with the Weather Service. I just had my 31st anniversary with the National Weather Service. So it's been 31 years, and it's all here in Central Illinois, whether it's Lincoln area or up in Peoria.
My daughter just had her 30th anniversary with DCFS. Wouldn't you rather be a meteorologist?
Yeah, I guess.
Yes. Yes, that's a tough job.
Yeah, yes, it is. Yes.
At any rate, what about the poor farmers? Somebody has sinned because we are getting weather.
It's been tough, and like I mentioned before, I know quite a few people that are farmers. I'm a city kid, but I learned the last 30 years. I've learned a lot about ag, and this. I don't remember a season like this where it's been constant rain and you can't even get the crop in the field.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's you get it in and then you don't get the right conditions, too wet, too dry, whatever the case may be. This is just unheard of, and my heart goes out to them because it's tough work. Anybody who thinks it isn't is crazy.
Well, and it's such a gamble.
And it's a gamble.
Always.
There's a lot of planning that has to go into this, and a lot of money and time trying to decide: are we going to do corn? Are we going to do beans? How much? Buy all these things. It's very
And
expensive.
is the president going to get together with the president of China, or are they going to go their separate ways? There are so many
Yes.
ramifications of this whole green thing.
Sure. Yeah.
Not the least of which is river transportation of our greens. Sometimes they come out of the
Yes.
field and there it sits in barges over there somewhere between Havana and
And that's the other impact of the weather. If it hasn't been bad enough that you can't get anything out, get your crop planted, or you're trying to rush to get it in or change your plans. Now we have where are we getting the crop from? Where we're moving last year's crop on the barges, or got to get the seed delivered to various places. And the Mississippi River has been pretty much shut down for barge traffic for over 2 months. The Illinois River has been shut down for well over a month. And I heard where I don't know about the Mississippi, but the Illinois, every day the Illinois is shut down, that's $1 million that the barge companies, the barge traffic, they're losing.
Well, we won't lose quite that much. We
Yeah.
won't lose quite that much if we don't honor our sponsors.
Yeah.
But we will honor our sponsors because without them, there's no river traffic.
That's right.
Go right ahead, Mr. Ash. Oh, having paid obeisance to our sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. We're right back here in the studio live. The program, of course, is... What the heck is the name of this program? Oh, yes, I remember now.
It's coming back to you.
We have as our guest this morning for Viewpoint, Mr. Chris Miller, a gentleman whom we respect greatly, and also not only respect, but we honor his cornucopia of knowledge as things weather. And I haven't tested him on basic math, so I don't know about that. But I'm not
you've got that down too.
I got that. I went to college for that too. So.
Yes, I'm sure. Judy off-air raised a question, and I had remembered that at one point in time, one of our appearances, you had referred to this area as a tornado alley. Mm-hmm. And I kind of got my attention because I always thought places like Oklahoma and Kansas were in Tornado Alley, and I guess they are. But kind of clean that up for us, will you?
Sure. If you look at where tornadoes have occurred over a long period of time, even 15, 20, 30 years or more, we tend to think of Texas, Oklahoma, all the way up, Kansas, Nebraska.
Yeah.
But when you actually look at the numbers, there have been a lot of tornadoes in Illinois, but also in the Deep South. So we looked at it from the standpoint of tornadoes per square mile. Because Texas, they're the biggest state in the lower 48, so of course they're going to have the most tornadoes. They got the biggest area. Mm-hmm. So what if you look at it per square mile? Illinois ranks 5th in the country for the most tornadoes per square mile.
That's a shock to me.
Yeah, that was actually very surprising to us too. Uh-huh. We knew there was a lot, but we didn't quite know how much. Kansas is at the top of the list, which doesn't surprise too many people. But then when I go down the list, I say number 2 is Florida, followed by Alabama, Mississippi, and Illinois.
Why them and us?
I recently saw some research that some of the very smart people in the colleges have done, coming when they look at the weather data and all this kind of stuff. And there was a guy at Northern Illinois University that did a study recently, and he's getting to be known as a mind when it comes to tornadoes across the country. And his research showed that in the last 20-30 years, we've seen more tornadoes east of the Mississippi River than ever before. Now, our recorded records for tornadoes don't go back that far, so we got to qualify that. Sure. Accurate tornado records only go back to 1950.
I'm surprised.
Yeah, accurate records. Now, the big ones, we've all heard about the tri-state tornado from the 1920s, and there were other tornadoes prior to that affected parts of the Midwest and New England states and all that. But when it comes to numbers recently, so in the last 60, 70 years, we've seen an increase east of the Mississippi. A lot of that has to do with increasing heat and moisture that's coming up from the Gulf of Mexico. And you think of where the Gulf of Mexico is, the vast majority of the Gulf of Mexico is east of the Mississippi River, and that moisture tends to flow up that way. And that's a key ingredient for tornadoes. So we have seen quite an increase here in Illinois. And when we break it down within the state of Illinois, Logan County ranks 2nd in the state out of 102 counties for the most tornadoes per square mile.
Well,
yeah,
we're famous.
Repeat that.
Yeah, Logan County, 2nd in the state of Illinois. Number 1 is Will County.
And
Joliet. Up around Chicago, Joliet, Romeoville, Joliet area.
I don't remember hearing of tornadoes in Europe, Asia, Africa.
Yeah, they occur in those countries, not in very large numbers. Europe may get, I don't know. They typically get under 100 tornadoes a year, but they get them. Once recently, I guess it was last year. It was around this time last year. Pretty nasty tornadoes in parts of Czechoslovakia, and you just don't think about it in those parts of the world. But the Mediterranean plays a role in their tornado production. Some in Africa, not a whole lot. They get them in Australia. We get them all over the world. A lot of tornadoes. Actually, they're doing tornado studies in the northern part of South America, parts of Brazil, Ecuador. They get quite a few tornadoes down there, but not near as many as we get. China gets a lot. Canada is getting into their tornado season. Their tornado season is June, July, and August. So they're getting into their season, and every year Canada gets about 100 tornadoes or so. China gets a little over 100 to 200 tornadoes a year. In the United States, we get about 1,400.
Is it our topography?
Yeah.
Is it are we sin more?
Well, there's that to be said.
Poor diet?
Yeah.
It's the Republicans and the Democrats' fault. They can't get along, so...
Yeah. What's the deal?
Yeah, it is the topography. You hit the nail on the head there. Tornadoes need a very specific set of conditions to develop. Another thing that recently came out, and I'm talking research that was just done last year, completed last year, and was put out there for the world. We finally, as meteorologists, have figured out how tornadoes develop.
And?
Because for years, we always assumed it was, and we even used the term, tornado touchdown.
Yeah.
Tornadoes don't touch down. Most of them do not. Some do, but most do not touch down from the storm. They develop at the ground, and they work their way up.
Oh.
And the highest wind speed in a tornado is about 30 to 60 feet above the ground. Not much higher up like we thought. And they've actually done studies to prove this, which explains why we see so much damage to upper floors of buildings, trees getting torn up so much at the tops of trees. You know, let's say, for example, a tornado comes in and we say that we're estimating the wind at 120 miles per hour. Up near the top of that tree, the wind is around 120 miles per hour. Down at the ground where we're walking around, it's about 80 or 90. Might not seem like much of a difference, but when it comes to damage, that's a huge difference. So
Why?
why the difference in wind speed?
Yeah.
They observed that. Now they're trying to answer why. We don't know. It flies in the face of everything we thought we knew about the physics of tornadoes, because at the ground, we have what's called friction. I mean, you think about it, if wind is going to flow through a town, you got buildings and trees and all kinds of, water towers and all kinds of stuff in the way of the wind.
Yeah.
And our thought was that friction near the ground slows the wind down a little bit, kind of like applying the brakes to your car, it slows the wind down a bit. So the highest wind should be way up where the cloud is, right? That's not what their observation showed.
Chris, I want to ask you a question. Early in our program, you alluded to the fact of shelter. Maybe both of you out there don't realize what an important weather station we have out there on the east side of town, right across from Lincoln Christian University. All you see is that big golf ball and the tee there. And I want to mention that just because. Tell us how it came to be that Lincoln, Illinois, got to be so important in our weather reporting services, and it is vital, not only just for us here, but for folks all over the state.
Sure.
How did it happen to drop anchor here, and what a coup that is for us to have that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In fact, way back in the Weather Bureau days, when the Weather Bureau developed locations, the initial thought was put them at the airports, because weather and aviation are extremely, they work hand in hand.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So put the weather station at the airports. Well, when we started getting more into the technology of using radar, and then especially Doppler radar, we got to get the radars, away from buildings and trees and things like that. So they said, we need to put these radars in a little bit more open areas. So having a weather office in Peoria at one time and Springfield at one time, the thought was, well, where are we going to put the new weather station? This was back in the late 80s. They said this, we need to find somewhere in central Illinois to put this weather station. And there, the geography of the area and just the fact that Lincoln is almost an equal distance from Bloomington, Springfield, Peoria, Decatur, the larger population centers of central Illinois, that was a great place to put the radar because of that, because we would have a clear shot at being able to see these storms. And I know you're never going to believe this, but a part of it also was political.
Oh, surely not.
In Illinois?
Surely not.
Surely.
Excuse me. And it was actually...
Everything's political in Illinois.
and we owe a lot to Congressman Bob Michael, former Congressman Bob Michael.
Bob Michael was a pretty nice guy.
Yes, he was.
He was
And
a straight shooter.
I had the opportunity to meet him a couple times. Awesome guy, and I'll tell you, he played a big role in that because we knew we wanted it somewhere in his congressional district. And so it was here, and also I don't want to diminish the importance of the local politics, because the Logan County board also at the time, and I'm talking about, like around the early 90s, played a big role also in helping the National Weather Service secure land and to be able to put our building and our Doppler radar out here. So a little bit of history there, but we've been there for about 25 years now.
Well, the pressing question to me is, you used the word shelter. Mm-hmm. Where the heck do you go to shelter? You're out there in the middle of the prairie.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know of any caves out there.
Sure.
In the old days, and I grew up out there around Burtonview, people had caves. Well, that was not only for produce. It was the ice box of the time,
Sure.
for a lot of produce, but it was a great spot to go for safety.
Oh yeah, you go to the old root cellar.
Yeah.
We have a shelter right in the building.
Do you really?
When people come in our building, we show them this all the time. They look at it and they go, "Oh, this is where you go to eat lunch and make your coffee." It's our break room. But our break room, when they constructed the building out there, was one of the first things that was put there. It's a concrete and steel reinforced building with a solid steel door on it, and they brought it on the back of a truck, set it into place, and built the rest of the building around it.
Is that right?
And every weather office in the country has one of those. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Bill asked you to define a word. I have a word I'd like defined too, please, Chris. And that's Doppler.
Doppler, okay.
It was Dr. George Doppler.
Not far off, actually. It is named after Christian Doppler, which he had theories way back. I can't remember the years. It was back in like the 16 or 1700s.
Oh, my.
But it has to do with sound waves. And it's called the Doppler effect. And what the Doppler effect is, it's this, and we've all experienced it. If you've ever heard a fire truck, an ambulance, with a siren that's moving down the road, as it's getting closer to you, it sounds like it's getting louder, and then as it moves away, it gets quieter, and then you can't hear it anymore. Well, we kind of take that for granted, but it's called the Doppler effect because it's the sound waves. The sound waves are coming at us at a higher frequency when it's moving toward us, and a lower frequency when it's moving away from us. And so Doppler proposed that hundreds of years ago. Well, we use that with radar, and it's called the Doppler radar, the Doppler effect in radar. And what it is the radar sends out pulses of energy, and if there's a raindrop at a particular location, if it's moving toward the radar, the energy that gets returned back is going to come back at a higher frequency than the original amount of energy that was sent. And if it's moving away, it's going to come back at a lower frequency. It's highly technical, a lot of physics in it. Our electronics guys are fantastic out there to keep our radar running all the time. And when we see that, it allows us to see the wind flow within storms. So now we can see rotations within storms or high wind speeds coming toward us. So when people hear Doppler radar indicated a possible tornado, what we're seeing is, we don't say it that way anymore. We say a thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado, because now we know that the tornado doesn't develop from up in the storm and work its way down. It does to the level where you see a funnel cloud, but to get the actual tornado, you got to get some rotation at the ground first. Very complicated setup.
How does that happen?
It's got a lot to do with the temperatures. It's got a lot to do with the temperature of the rainfall that's occurring with that storm, and also if there's any hail. It has to do with the wind flow in and around the storm. And when you think of the perfect set of conditions that has to develop to get a tornado to form, it's amazing that they form at all. And and I wish they didn't, because of the destruction that they do.
Yes.
But they do form, and we've got it figured out as far as how these things develop.
Hail is always a major factor in a major storm.
Mm-hmm.
and it can do a whale of a lot of damage. Are there records around here for central Illinois as far as hail is concerned?
Yeah, we had, in fact, again, perfect timing. There's a great job on your part on getting it scheduled. Yeah, we had hailstones just a little bit smaller than baseballs yesterday. We had a storm move through here in the afternoon. Our friends to the east of us over in DeWitt County, I don't know if you've ever heard of a little town called Lane in
Not
DeWitt
so much.
Yeah, they had hail that's just smaller than baseballs.
That'd hurt somebody bad.
Yes, it would. It would injure you. I saw broken windows on cars and dents and whatnot. The record for hail in central Illinois, we actually got to kind of move a little bit to around the Kankakee area. It's not really in central Illinois, but that's the statewide record. And they had a hailstone that measured 6 inches across. And you can imagine just it weighs a lot. It's going to hurt somebody if it hits them. And every year in central Illinois, we get reports of at least golf ball or baseball size hail, and sometimes even as big as grapefruits.
When I was a kid, I didn't know any meteorologists, but I thought my mother knew everything. And so we went to her for those facts as well.
Sure.
And she said that the reason a hail will get so big is that they go up and down, and the more they do that, the more they grow.
Your mother was a very smart woman.
I knew it.
Yes. No, that's exactly how they do. The raindrops will fall through the storm, and way up in the storm, you see the white puffy clouds up there, and you think, oh wow, it's 80 degrees here at the ground, but up in that storm, it's about 30 below zero,
Oofta.
way high up. So you got ice, and the liquid raindrop will fall, and then it'll get pushed back up into the storm. It gets pushed way high up where temperatures like that, it's going to instantly freeze. Then you get something about the size of a pea. And then it comes down, and the wind going up pushes it back up again, and it just keeps making these loops, these circles within the storm. That's another thing we can see on the radar. We can see these big chunks of ice getting moved up and down through the storms.
Amazing.
And the radar can estimate how big that might be.
Well, somehow they never figured out how to stop a clock so that you would be exactly on time. Chris Miller, whom we call affectionately and with great respect Dr. Chris Miller, we think he's worth that appellation. Oh, and by the way, to Joe Shaler, my apologies, sir. I ran off and left the paper that you wanted me to talk about, and I'll get that to Mr. Jim Ash, and we will give you some promo on that, sir. I wanted to acknowledge that to you. Chris Miller, thank you very much for spending your time with us.
Bless you.
I could sit and have a cup of coffee, or perhaps a beer even.
Sure. I'm from Milwaukee. I'll have beer.
Not much of that.
You don't fight against
Certainly
that.
not much of that. But anyway, thank you for being with us. I find it fascinating to sit and listen to you. And he will not be able to stop the rain.
No.
He's good at reporting it, but he's not good at controlling things. Chris Miller,
right.
thank you very much.
You're very welcome. And when it comes to controlling the rain, I leave that to a higher power.
Yeah.
Well, we'll close off with a standard close that I like to use, and it simply is this. Be the reason someone smiled today. Thank you for Viewpoint.